The last unit we're going to talk about for the nutrition unit, at least at this point, is about food labeling. So what we have to determine is how or what makes a food good for us. And there's some things on a food label that are really important to understand when we're looking at consuming a snack or consuming a meal. Because even though the label on the front, which we'll address also, may say a couple positive things about it, the label itself can't get away with any of the information. So what we need to look at and what we need to consider is what's highlighted here. Number one is how many servings per container. If I'm going to drink a bottle of Gatorade, am I going to drink one serving or is there four servings? The one on the wall, for example, has about 2.5, but many of us use it as a one single serving. Also notice that where it says amount per serving, that means for every serving, I'm getting 250 calories. So for this label, for example, there's 2 servings per container. So this is 500 calories if I eat this entire package. Now, the next couple of values are things that I want to watch out for. Now, even though fat is necessary, so is sodium, so is cholesterol, only in small amounts because we get so much in our diet is necessary. So choose foods low in fat, saturated fat. We want zero trans fat if we can help it. And so we want those values to be 5% or less are considered low, 20% or more considered high. So if I'm eating one snack and there's 20% of my daily value of fat in it, and I still have to eat 3 meals and maybe have a snack after dinner, that's a high level of fat. The next is I want to choose foods that are high in things like fiber, vitamins, and minerals. So just the opposite. 5% is considered low and 20% is high. So this, for example, is a really good source of calcium, but it's not that good of a source of vitamins at all, or iron. We also look at protein. Protein is something that we want. They say that you need about half your weight in grams of protein. So if you're 100 pounds, you're looking at getting about 50 grams of protein. So that's dependent on each person. So for my vegetarians, make sure you get your protein sources. For everybody else, make sure you're still getting it. But it's easier for you because you can eat high sources like meats. So here is one of my favorite slides that we get to go over. And hopefully recorded all those notes in the last slide. But when we have a baked potato, you notice that it's 10% protein, tons of vitamin C, good in iron, thiamin's a B vitamin, riboflavin a B vitamin, niacin's a B vitamin, and it's 11% of my daily amount of allotted calories. There's a little bit of calcium, a little bit of vitamin A, but it's not my primary source for those. But watch what happens when I make them into French fries. I lose a lot of things. Now, also, if you didn't pay attention, the calories in the top left corner, 10 strips of fries. I'm sorry. When I eat French fries, I'm eating like 50, if I can help it. It's 158 calories, and I lose all of my nutrients. So even though that percentage of calories goes down, so is the amount I'm allowed to eat. So I'm going to go back really quick. One large potato is 220 calories with all these nutrients. Once I fry it, all right, it goes down to 158, but I also lose all my values of everything else. One more time because I like the visual effect. Once it's baked, once it's not. All right, so what we're going to learn about is calculating for nutrient density. And you'll need this when we get some examples of food labels just to see it. So as you write this down, nutrient density formula, you're going to divide the number of calories in one serving by 2,000. This is the percentage of calories. So number of calories, so if it's 50 calories, divided by 2,000 equals, and I think it's around, I should have done an easier number, 200 calories divided by 2,000 times it by 100. I'm going to have a percent of calories, which is about 10%, right? Now it says compare the percentage of calories to the percent of daily values. Your vitamins and minerals are already in a percent of daily value for you on your food label. And I hope that makes sense. So if the percentage calories is lower than the nutrient, it's considered nutrient dense. If it's higher than, yeah, if it's higher, then it's not. So I'm going to go back up really quick to the previous slide. Pause here if you need to continue to jot this down. But here for an example is something. So if I take 158 calories divided by 2,000 calories, which is the average of a normal person to consume in a day, I'm going to get 0.079. Now to make it a percentage, I need to times it by 100, which gives me 7.9%. On here it says 8% calories. So out of all these nutrients, none of these are more nutrient dense than the calories I'm getting. Niacin's equivalent, vitamin C is equivalent, but everything else is lower. So when it comes to nutrient density, baked potato doesn't have any. French fries don't have any. Now, I go up to my baked potato. I would take 220 calories, divided that by 2,000, gives me 0.11%, times it by 100 to get a percentile, and that's 11% like it says. Now I notice that it's nutrient dense in niacin because it's 17% versus 11, thiamine, which is 14% versus 11, iron, which is 15% versus 11, and vitamin C is a huge source. And then the others are a little bit lower, but they're still better than if they were in French fry form. So you'll have some food labels, and I want you to calculate nutrient density for 5 different foods with the labels that you're assigned. Okay. Next, what we're going to go over is talk about food advertising because labels try to sell. That's the point. So what I want you to think of, and this one gives you an example, but I want you to think of ways that food is being sold. What do boxes say to make them be portrayed as healthy? What do the boxes say to make you want to buy them? What colors do they use? So in your notes, create that list of ways companies try to sell you food. Pause this video, create the list, share the list, and then come back to go through the discussion. So the first one we're going to discuss is free. We'll have sugar-free, we have fat-free, and so what it means is without whatever it's advertising. But what it doesn't tell you, and this is the stuff you're going to want to jot down, is it doesn't tell you how much is present. So even though it doesn't have the one ingredient, it can still have other undesirable ingredients. So it could say no cholesterol but still have fat, or have no fat and have cholesterol. It could say sugar-free but then have lots of fat. So it's really tricky on how we go about this particular type. All right? If something is low in something, it means that it can be low in calories, low in fat. But again, this one doesn't completely mean that it's free of that ingredient. And again, just because it's low in one thing, like low in sodium, doesn't mean it isn't high in sugars, high in fats, high in cholesterol, other things that we already get a lot of. So again, have these examples of what it means and what it doesn't mean. Next one's reduced, less, or more. So we're looking at it has less of this or not as much as this. We're looking at it doesn't mean that it's low in calories. It just doesn't have as much as it's claiming. So this one doesn't have as much fat as something else. Again, it may not be a good thing. Sometimes when we put food through our processing, we actually lose some of the nutrient values. So this is where coming to read food labels becomes important because sometimes it might have less fat, but then there's more salt to make it taste good. So we have to be careful with that. And the same thing, we see with less. All right. Next one, we say light and lean. We kind of repeated this one with low, so I'm not going to go over it. It just means that we may not have what it's claiming, but it doesn't mean that we don't find other things in it. So it could be a lighter version, but it doesn't mean it's better for you. Next one's healthy imitation or substitute. So we can have multiple things for this. Because something claims it's healthy, it doesn't mean a person can go without exercise or nutritious foods to still be healthy. So just because you're eating a healthy dinner doesn't mean that that's all you have to do to be healthy. We look at imitation. It usually describes like sugar, for example, our substitute or imitation cheese. It describes a food which substitutes or resembles the traditional. So it isn't the real thing, it's something fake. But it can be nutritionally inferior, so not as good for you, and it contains one or less of the ingredients found in the traditional food. So it's like the discussion we had. If you're going to make a cookie, have a cookie, enjoy your cookie, but make good decisions before you eat the cookie. Also, it doesn't mean that there isn't other things that aren't good in it. Just because cheese doesn't have dairy, well, cheese is a dairy product. It should. So when you're eating a non-dairy cheese, you've got to really question the ingredients on that label. Also, substitute, it does not tell you what the food contains. So just because I'm having a substitute sugar, it means I'm not eating real sugar. It tastes like it, but it isn't the real thing. And so we're playing with chemicals to get that reaction. And again, it doesn't make it healthier. All right. Let's a couple more that I want to throw in is if something is high. So it says high in fiber, high in vitamin C. It might be good. It could be 20% or more, but my favorite is like gummy bears. Gummy bears are high in vitamin C and sugar. So a vitamin C gummy bear, the one that is for candy, right, might have a lot of vitamin C, but there's nothing else good about it. So we have to, again, read the label, understand that, okay, just because it says it's good in one thing, is it overall a really good food? Um, Lean, we talked about, so it can have less fat, but again, what are we substituting? If something's fortified, remember, fortifying means that we added something to it, which is good. It prevents us from getting sick from vitamin deficiencies, but why am I not eating something that has it naturally? And then we saw reduced. If we didn't, we can discuss it. But reduced usually describes food that's altered that has at least 25% less of a nutrient or calories compared to a similar product. Again, it doesn't mean this food is completely free of the ingredient. It's labeled reduced, but it just means that that one thing is less. So it doesn't always make it better. But this is how the advertising companies get us to buy food. If it's fat-free, if it's sugar-free, if it's lean, if it's healthy, we buy it with the idea that it's better for us, which sometimes eating the thing that might have a little bit more fat but less fake ingredients is better for our bodies and for our digestive systems. So we really have to be careful with all of it. This very last slide is going to go into refusal skills, and I'll explain why. When it comes to peer pressure, we eat food, we like food, food's in a social situation. But we shouldn't ever be forced to eat something we don't want. And we should also be able to stand up for the fact that, you know what, I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to make a better decision. So when offered something, and even though it's a snack, we can say the phrase over and over again. We can say no directly. We can suggest another activity. We can give a reason or we can walk away. So even the food is something that we all partake in multiple times a day. We have to stick to our own decisions. And same thing with if you're going to work out, your friend's encouraging sedentary activities, get your workout in. Use refusal skills. Get what you need to get done so that you can be healthier and live that healthier lifestyle. And if anything, encourage them to work out with you or make that healthy food choice with you. That's the end of this unit. Make sure you've taken proper notes. If you need to review any of the nutrition PowerPoints, they are all available on YouTube, and I can share the link with you when I return. All right, have a good day. Please. Huh, so confused.